No DQ Galaxy. We are live with a recap of AEW Dynamite for June 26th, 2024. And in addition to the Dynamite results, I will also be giving my predictions for the 2024 Forbidden Door pay-per-view, which is this coming Sunday. We kicked off Dynamite with our scumbag MJF, but before he could get one word in, Danny Garcia interrupted. This episode of Dynamite was in Buffalo, New York, Daniel Garcia territory. MJF warned him to tread lightly. Danny said that he had something he wanted to say to MJF that nobody else has ever said before. He had some nice things to say about MJF. He talked about how MJF saw more in Daniel Garcia than others, thought that Garcia had the potential, instead of just being a lackey, could become a pillar of AEW. MJF even gave Garcia a match. Garcia lost, but he said it motivated him. And it made him realize why settle for being a pillar when he can be the foundation of AEW. And he thanked MJF. Now, MJF responded, he had one thing to say. Thank you. And he actually shook Garcia's hand. He said that a lot of people jealous of MJF's success, but there's one guy who's getting close to MJF's success, and that's Daniel Garcia. MJF gave Garcia credit. He did not come from a company that when he came in, he was expecting a handout. He wasn't a guy coming from another company looking for a handout. MJF brought up their match, how he did beat Garcia without breaking a sweat. However, Garcia grown and has ascended the ladder by busting his ass. And he didn't run from the grind. According to MJF, Garcia is the grind. And proposed a match with Garcia at All In at Wembley Stadium. Now, before we could have Garcia accept the match, Will Ospreay, who is the international champion, came down to the ring, talked about how he appreciates Garcia and offered Garcia an international title match for next week's Dynamite, and also said he'll put the AEW World title on the line if he wins at Forbidden Door. Garcia, of course, agreed to this. Ospreay gave a look at MJF and walked out, and then MJF told Garcia, focus on the opportunity. MJF seemed a little bit upset about all this. He left. So it was an interesting segment, but I kind of agree with Matthew in the chat room. I'm not that into Daniel Garcia. I just feel like he's missing something. I thought he did a decent job on the mic, and it was Buffalo, his hometown, but I really do not want to see MJF versus Daniel Garcia at Wembley Stadium. I'm hoping that this is just a red herring and there's going to be a different direction that this is all going in. I feel like MJF should be doing something bigger. He goes from main eventing with Adam Cole to Daniel Garcia. Not sure how I feel about this, but maybe they have a little twist for us and this is going to go in a different direction. And I do have more to say about Will Ospreay and that whole scenario with the world title in just a little bit, so stay tuned. I am going to be doing predictions for Forbidden Door, so stay tuned. We had our first match of the evening, which is the BCC going up against LIJ. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of the LIJ team. Bryan Danielson was on commentary, And it was a solid opening match. LIJ worked together. They got the upper hand on Wheeler Yuta. Then Claudio tagged in, used his power to get the upper hand. And it was back and forth after the commercial break. But then Jon Moxley used a steel chair to get his team disqualified. And I'm thinking, BCC really could not beat these guys. I guess it's politics or whatever. But yeah, it was kind of lame. And then Naito, who is facing Moxley for the IWGP title at Forbidden Door, he came out there, and then Moxley brawled with him. And then back in the ring, Shingo, who's one of the LIJ guys, he's fighting Bryan Danielson at Forbidden Door, and he was doing the BCC elbows to Yuta. Bryan ran down to make the save to set up that match. I really don't care about that Bryan match. I'm sure it's going to be great. It's Bryan Danielson. He could have a great match with a broom, but not really caring about that match too much. We'll talk about the prediction in just a few minutes. We had Jay White versus Rey Fenix in a Owen Hart tournament match. And they were doing each other's taunts at each other, you know, the guns up, the no fear, whatever it is. Referee had enough of all the shenanigans because you had Bullet Club or Bang Bang Gang, whatever they're called. And you had Pent out there. All the outside people were kicked out by the referee. Phoenix had the early momentum in this match, did a suicide dive, and then they got back in the ring. White took control, could not put Phoenix away. Phoenix made a comeback after the commercial break and came off the top with a frog splash, could not make the cover right away. And then they traded some near falls, and eventually Jay White got the win with the Blade Runner to advance. I guess his career is not dead yet. He's still in the running in the Owen Hart tournament, although I do not see him winning this one. Then Christian Cage showed up with his crew and had a little bit of a confrontation with the Bang Bang Gang. We then had the Young Bucks backstage talking about their loss to the Acclaimed on last week's Dynamite, and they said that when the titles are on the line, the result will be different. Of course, it was an eliminator match last week, and now Acclaimed will get a future championship opportunity. And then the Elite revealed that they are entering their own wild card into the Owen Hart tournament, which tells me Ospreay's not the wild card. I thought maybe Will Ospreay could lose to Swerve Strickland and then be the wild card entry, but it looks like it's going to be somebody of the Elite's choosing. Could it be a certain Hangman? Guess we'll find out in the near future. The Acclaimed came into the ring for a promo, and they referred to the Young Bucks as the Young Cucks and vowed to win the tag team titles and get them back into the Acclaimed. Then the Elite showed up with Okada, and they issued a 6-man challenge. And then Billy responded by saying that he knows a president who wants a piece of Okada. And we had a video package from Tanahashi, who said the Scissor Ace is coming. Segment was all right. Not much else to say about it. I thought it was fine, but again, don't really have too much interest. To me, the Forbidden Door was cool the first time they did it, but then every year that passes, like, this is all stuff we've seen, and I'm kind of over it for the most part. Calvin Bowman, Hangman Adam Page has been taking some personal time off. He should be back in the near future. And if I had to take a wild guess, I'd say he's the wild card in the Owen Hart tournament. We had right at 9:10, 9:15, the women's match of the evening, the best women's division in the world, according to Tony Khan. We had Toni Storm, Mariah May, and Mina Shirakawa versus Saraya, Anna Jay, and Harley Cameron. And this story here, of course, it's Toni versus Mina this Sunday, and Mina came to the ring with Mariah. So it's, Mariah is kind of in the middle because she's friends with Mina. They had their history, and Toni is aligned with Mariah in AEW. So Saraya and Anna Jay attempted to take advantage because, there was communication issues. Mina tagged in Mariah instead of Toni, and Toni was upset. So Saraya's team did get the upper hand for a while. And yes, it was basically a can they coexist tag match. And shout out to Dave is a Beastly tuning in for the AEW recap. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. After the commercial break, Toni Storm came in, did the hip attack, but then Toni Storm and Mina once again not getting along. Things broke down with everyone in the ring, and Mina was able to get the win. She beat Harley, pinned her, and then afterwards, Toni and Mina reluctantly shared a toast. But then Mina was going to hit Toni with the bottle, but accidentally hit Mariah instead. And both Toni and Mina were concerned for their friend Mariah as the crowd chanted, "You effed up." It was an interesting way to build up their match. I mean, I guess this has more of a storyline than most of the feuds in AEW right now. So I guess there's a little bit of intrigue in this one. This was done okay, I thought. We then had a Mercedes Moné, Stephanie Valkyr video package, and Mercedes cut a promo, says there's a price to pay when you mess with Moné. We'll talk about that match in just a few moments with the predictions. We had everybody's favorite segment, the Learning Tree, Chris Jericho, with the bad apple Brian Keith, who had his arm in a sling, and Big Cass revealed that Brian Keith is unable to compete in the scheduled 6-man tag team match coming up at Forbidden Door. Then we had Jericho revealed that they found a new partner, and this partner made a video for all the branches. But Jericho said he wanted to see it firsthand, so he did not watch the video. And sure enough, when the video aired, it was a double cross. The video was from Jericho's old friend, Minoru Suzuki. However, Suzuki, instead of teaming with Jericho, said he wants a one-on-one match with Jericho next week for the FTW Championship. And once again, the crowd chanted, "You fucked up." I mean, as far as the Brian Keith deal goes, I'm really hopeful that, well, we'll get to it in just a few moments here. But Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata came out there, and Joe had some words, and then Joe headbutted Jericho, and Joe's team cleared the ring. So more on that in a few moments when I do my predictions for the pay-per-view. We had Zack Sabre Jr. versus Kyle O'Reilly with Orange Cassidy on commentary. Good technical match. I mean, they did a lot of submission, feeling out process. They were exchanging strikes. Lots of back and forth with these guys. Crowd was chanting, "This is wrestling." It was good. The only thing is, it's obviously filler, building up Zack Sabre for Orange Cassidy. So you knew who was winning. And sure enough, Zack did put on the arm breaker. Kyle quickly tapped out. And then the Kingdom, they were trying to distract Zack during the match, but did not work out for them. They did check on Kyle after the match was over. And then Orange Cassidy came into the ring, had a face-off with Zack Sabre Jr., and then Zack's buddies came out there. Then Ishii came out there and stood by Orange Cassidy, gave him a little bit of backup. I really don't care all that much about Zack Sabre and Orange Cassidy, although I think it'll be a good match. I'm sure it'll be a good match. Like, I don't think there's going to be any bad matches on the show. But again, I'll give my prediction shortly. And then we had our main event of Dynamite, Will Ospreay and Swerve in another Can They Coexist match, going up against the Gates of Agony, a.k.a. Team Rampage, Team AEW Dark, if it was still a thing. So you know how this one's going to go. You know, Swerve and Ospreay working well together, but then they had a little bit of miscommunication. They were arguing. That allowed the Gates of Agony to get the advantage. And then after the break, Ospreay and Swerve started to build momentum, but then Ospreay accidentally super kicked Swerve. Gates of Agony nearly won the match, but then Swerve came back in. Swerve went for a kick, and it looked like he was going for Ospreay, but ended up hitting one of the Gates of Agony members. And then Swerve and Ospreay got it together, and Swerve helped Ospreay, snapped the arm of one of the Gates Agony members, and then Ospreay picked up the 1-2-3 victory with the hidden blade. So it went just about as you might expect it to go. And then afterwards, Ospreay picked up the AEW title, but Swerve attacked him and left him laying with the house call kick. Swerve picked up his title, and Swerve was the last man standing heading into Forbidden Door. I thought the show was okay. Another decent Dynamite. They did a fairly solid job of hyping up the pay-per-view, although I don't really feel like my excitement level is all that more higher than it was going in to Dynamite. I give it a C+. Another decent, but to me, not a spectacular show. Not at the level of classic era Dynamites. So it was okay. Now let's go ahead and do the Forbidden Door predictions. Learning Trees team, apparently minus Brian Keith, versus Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata. Considering that Joe's team got the best of them, I'm going to say the Learning Tree team wins. As far as the mystery partner goes, fingers crossed, but unlikely. I'd love it to be Enzo Amore. I would be invested. I will turn the corner and embrace the Learning Tree if Enzo Amore joins Chris Jericho's group. That will turn the corner for this group if Enzo returns. I will be invested. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't think it's going to happen. I do not plan to get my hopes up, but I would love it. Bryan Danielson versus Shingo. It's an Owen Hart tournament match. I wouldn't be shocked if Bryan Danielson won the whole thing. So Bryan wins. I mean, to me, this is like the easiest match to predict. Actually, not true, because we got another match here. MJF versus Hechicero. MJF wins. Come on now. Like, I don't even want to see this match. Like, I know MJF's going to win. I mean, this is maybe the least interested I've ever been in an MJF pay-per-view match ever. Like, to me, it's just filler. MJF should be doing something so much more than this. Just my opinion. Meh. MJF wins. Easy prediction. So next up, we have the IWGP Championship. Jon Moxley versus Naito. I don't watch New Japan, so I really don't care about the title. I could see this one going either way. Moxley could lose, so New Japan gets a win on this show. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. This one, I think, could go either way. I don't really have that much interest in it, but I'm going to say new champion on this one. I don't know what the storylines are in New Japan, and what their direction is long term. But I mean, how long does Moxley really need to be the New Japan champion? I don't know. So I'm going to say title change, but I could see this one going either way. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy. This is another one where I'm not super confident with my pick, but I'll say Zack Sabre Jr. wins. He comes in, picks up a nice win over Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy winning or losing. I mean, he's one guy that can lose and get more over in defeat. So he'll be fine. He could take the loss. I'll say Zack Sabre Jr. wins. Although Matthew thinks that Super Pockets wins. Yeah, I don't know what New Japan's schedule is like or what they have planned. So that one's hard for me to call. Toni Storm versus Mina. Shirakawa. Mariah May is out there. Mina's been getting a lot of TV time in AEW and seems to have her following, but I do not see a title change here. Like I think it's either going to be Mariah May or Saraya that takes the title from Toni Storm. I think more likely Mariah May, but we'll see. I don't see Mina winning the title here. This one I think is pretty easy to call. Toni Storm retains. Mercedes Moné versus Stephanie Vaquer. This is champion versus champion, title for title. TBS title versus the New Japan Strong Women's title. Mercedes Moné wins. I mean, this is another one that I think is very easy to predict. Mercedes is not losing anytime soon. She continues to build up her momentum, on this big run in AEW. Mercedes 2 belts, I think, is pretty much a sure thing here. And then we have the ladder match to determine the new TNT champion. Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, Jack Perry, Dante Martin, Lio Rush, and to be determined. I think that there's one spot, at least off of Wikipedia, it says TBT or TBD. If somebody out there knows who that last person is, if I missed something on Dynamite, let me know. But based off of this list, I know people are thinking Jack Perry seems to be the odds-on favorite, but I think Takeshita needs this more than the others. Takeshita, if they're really wanting to push this guy and make him something, put the title on him. Jack Perry's with the Elite. He's going to be doing what he's doing. He really doesn't need the title. I'm going to go with Takeshita, but I would not be shocked if Jack Perry ends up winning the title. And then we got Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay for the AEW World title. Now, I was thinking Ospreay would beat Swerve, but my initial thought was it would happen at Wembley Stadium. And instead they announced this match for Forbidden Door. I think after seeing the angle at the end of Dynamite, Ospreay got laid out, Swerve Strickland standing tall, AEW's TV numbers reaching record lows. I mean, Swerve is a great athlete, entertaining guy, but it just doesn't seem to be working. And Ospreay's their guy. So I think they're going to pull the trigger on Ospreay. And I have a feeling now that the wild card appears to be like Hangman Adam Page or somebody with the Elite, I think Bryan Danielson's winning the whole tournament. I think Bryan Danielson's winning the Owen, and we're going to have a rematch from Dynasty. Ospreay defending the AEW World Championship in his home country at Wembley Stadium. Rematch against Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson's last hurrah. He's never won the AEW title versus the home country guy. So I think that's my prediction for the All-In main event. Like, you got to go with the biggest match possible. So either Will Ospreay versus MJF, which obviously it looks like they're going in a different direction with Daniel Garcia, or you have Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson rematch from Dynasty. So I'm thinking Ospreay wins the title here. Bryan wins the Owen Hart tournament. And, they're going to hype it up. Can Danielson, before he retires, finally win the AEW world title? But he's got to beat the home country guy. Ospreay's going to defend his title against the guy he did beat, but Bryan's even more determined and hungry, coming off the Owen tournament, trying to win the title. So that's my prediction. And I think that's all the matches that were announced as of now. I might have missed one or two, but those were the ones that I had listed here. It should be a great show. My excitement level, I mean, I wish it was higher than it is. It's like maybe a 6 for me. Like, it's funny because I know it's going to be a great show, but hype-wise, it just hasn't done it for me. Like, it's like some of the recent NXT shows where I know it's going to be great, or at least back in the day with the takeovers, you were guaranteed a top-tier show. Just like this, it's pretty much a guarantee you're going to get a great wrestling show. But yeah, my excitement level could definitely be higher. Anyways, guys, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Spread the word about NoDQ.com. Tell a friend. Say yes to NoDQ.com. And I will see you all next time.